In the example before, we had two pretty equivalent options. We could use a conditional to check if an error would occur in advance, or we could catch errors after they had already occurred. So, what's the usefulness of catching errors if they could just be avoided with conditionals? First, part of this is more about our thought process when creating programs. Catching errors lets us first emphasize the code itself, and later think about what errors might arise. You don't want to do that in big programs, but for individual functions, that can help you focus on the actual reasoning of the function first. Along those same lines, when catching errors, some of the code will run until an error arises, which is different from checking if any errors will arise in advance and only running any code if none will. Second, catching errors can create more organized code. If you have a segment of code that could have multiple expected errors arise, then you would need either a long conditional that checks every possible error, or a series of conditionals that each check a different error. Either of those can get pretty messy. When you're catching errors, you can generally just wrap one long block of code into a code block and list the errors that could arise at the end. Third, and perhaps most importantly, if you're writing programs for people to actually use, which presumably is the goal of learning to program, you never want a program to crash on the user. The goal is error-free code, but in big programs that's nearly impossible. Big applications like games or operating systems may handle dozens of errors per second. Many of these are expected, but some aren't. Catching errors localizes the damage even of unexpected errors. So, for example, if you were writing a document in a word processor and it hit an error loading a font, you wouldn't want the program to just crash. You'd want it to say, it's better to just not show that font than to crash altogether. Error handling allows us to write programs where, even if there are unanticipated errors, their damage is localized.